Very good morning, and thank you for lighting the lamp. So we will take care of these activities because light is for truth, knowledge, and for peace. So we started our first function of this center with lighting the lamp. I welcome you all, and we are gathered here for special two lectures by Graziano Cartley from Yale University, and he's going to talk on two different topics, which is first one is personal librarianship, which is very fascinating for all of us. Being librarian, we need to know what is going on in the other part of the world and how they run this program. And second lecture will be on research data, that also all of us we are concerned about because we collect huge data for research, and then what happens to that research data and how to manage that, he's going to talk about it. So it's very grateful, and I'm very much thankful to Graziano for accepting our invitation, and I extend a welcome to his wife Sylvia. She's with him, and she's also from library science profession. She has worked in public libraries and especially in school children section. She is also a good photographer, and has done a gardening. I came to know from her website. So I welcome you, ma'am, here in University of Pune, and I am very much thankful to Pramod Nair, who actually connect us with Graziano. He came here for Hyderabad for one other function, and he agreed to come to the university while going back to the Mumbai. So I'm very happy to listen to him, and we are very much eager. So before I hand over it to Professor Kumbar for introduction of Graziano, I would like to speak about few things about the university and Center for Publication Ethics. University, I will not go into much details, but this university was established in 1949, and we have 12 faculties all over the campus and more than 50 departments, and more than 700 colleges are affiliated, including 200 research institutes. So total more than 7 lakh students are taking benefit of this university and learning in different areas of research. Moreover, university has very good collaborations with many other universities all over the world, especially US, UK, Canada, and Japan, and France, Russia. One workshop and one conference is going on right now on the campus. So we want to say something about the publication ethics, Center for Publication Ethics. There is a problem of predatory journals, as we were talking today morning. A lot of people, they fall prey, especially researchers, they publish their research into some journals which are not standard one. And this problem we recognized some time back when we started receiving emails, spam emails, that you become editorial board member and publish your research into our journal. And that time university took the cognizance of this issue, and under the leadership of Professor Bhushan Patwardhan, who is now Vice Chairman of the UGC University Grants Commission in Delhi, with his leadership, this university established the Academic Journal Expert Committee, where they started working on journals and quality of the journals. Then after that, this committee published research guidelines for the researchers and faculty members, so that what kind of care you need to take when you are publishing papers and communicating your research. University do have plagiarism policy, that how to take care of plagiarism and how to check your thesis before you submitting, and also research papers. Moreover, university has supported to establish the research portal of the university, where we are gathering all publications of faculty members, and last year it got the place on website. So now every faculty member knows each other publications, and there are more collaborations among them. Then in 2017, university, when there was a request from University Grant Commission to send list of journals which are good in many other disciplines. So our university has not sent any list, but they said we will analyze certain journals, we will do a rigorous testing, checking of journals, and then we will submit the list of what we feel they are good. So again, under the leadership of Professor Bhushan Patrodhan, we conducted a rigorous study of whatever list earlier published by UGC and analyzed almost 5,000 journals, and we found that 88% journals are dubious or some not following the ethical practices, publishing practices, and that was published in a leading journal of the India Current Science, and it took a cognizance by all over the world, all over the India. And after that, university decided to establish the Center for Publication Ethics in 2018, and that was established. I'm very happy and very proud that all university authorities are helping to the center to get established on the campus. Now it is a separate entity, and I'm very much thankful to head of the Department of Library Science who help us in house this journal initially in the department. Now we have got the separate office and it will shift it there. But the aim and objective of this center to spread the information about research integrity and good list of journals, and also it conduct various programs for the researchers. Meantime, UGC established its UGC self-journal analysis because we're looking at our earlier work. UGC established a special journal cell into this center last year in the month of January and give us the job of creating a UGC care list. And for that purpose, UGC has established the Consortia for Academic and Research Ethics. And the first outcome of this consortia is the list of credible journals or list of reference journals, which is being used all over the India for career advancement and for any academic purposes. And I am happy that University of Savitribai Phule Pune University is selected for this purpose. So we have good team of library science students, master degree students who are working very hard for making this list more credible. And the list, I'm not going to talk more about the list because we are gathered here to listen to him. So in short, this center is working for spreading the awareness about research integrity and publication ethics. So in that, I just want to stop here and I call Professor Kumbar to introduce our guest speaker to all of you.
At the outset, since this is the first program of the Center for Publication Ethics, let us compliment Nagarkar Madam for having a wonderful department. Good morning, friends. This is indeed my pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker for this lecture, this occasion, Mr. Graziano Crathley and Mrs. Graziano. Mr. Graziano is a librarian at LA University, but in addition to librarian, he is much more a literary personality. He is a translator, he is an editor, he is author, and he has particularly published Italian translation of works of Rudyard Kipling. We are more familiar with Rudyard Kipling, and then James Hogg and other Native American and Indian poetry, as well as he has publications in the form of book chapters, reviews, interviews, articles and essays on Anglophone Indian literature and material, technological, economic and cultural aspects of book production, circulation, preservation in West Asia. These are actually the areas on which he has worked. More particularly, he has been known for his editorship for the 3 titles I could find: the Trans-Saharan Book Trade, Manuscript Culture, Arabic Literacy and Intellectual History of Muslim Africa, Why Should I Write a Poem Now?, the letters of Srinivas Raipur and William Carroll's Williams. Angular Desire is another book actually he was associated, and even the forthcoming title, which is called as Random Harvest. As a librarian, Mr. Crathley is involved in personal librarian program about which he is going to talk about, and therefore he is going to speak the origin, the implementation and the assessment of the personal librarian program, He will particularly highlight the significant aspects of personal librarian program, the impact, challenges, and scope for the growth of personal library program. His second lecture is going to be on transition from research materials to research data and back, what we talked about. On behalf of the Center for Publications Ethics, we welcome you to this lecture, and I request Graziano to begin his deliberations.
Felicitation करूया ना? Yeah. तुम्हीच करा sir. Just 1 minute. We want to felicitate you. We just want to give a token of love to you. We want to give you university souvenir of the university, and we have a special shawl for you.
The shawl comes with the university logo and specially made for. Come here. We have a very special way to offer this. True, very true.
Namaskar. I'm very glad and very honored to be here. I'm going to repeat what Shubha just said in terms of thankfulness in reverse. I'm very thankful to Professor Nagarkar for inviting me out of the blue. I wasn't expecting to come to Pune. Professor Nayar established the connection, and as Professor Nagarkar mentioned, and I was planning to go back from Hyderabad to Mumbai, and then out of the blue on my email comes up this invitation, and I say, I've never been to Pune. I heard great things, and this is an opportunity. So I changed my travel plans a little bit, and now I'm here. One thing I want to mention about the lamp, it happens that the logo, the emblem of Yale University is light and truth. It is spelled out in ancient Hebrew because of the Protestant connection of the founders of the university. And it created a little bit of problems when they were engaging in fundraising in the Gulf countries, because they always say, why is it in Hebrew? Why is it not in English? And so they had to explain the history of the university. But light and truth, so there is a connection. Actually, we will never be able to light a lamp, because all the fire alarms will go off and the fire department will come. So I'm happy that we can see it in live, the light come up alive. So to get to my topic, when I started library school in probably 1999, and in order to graduate, I had to take 4 mandatory courses and then other electives. And one of the 4, which I took right away in the first semester, was reference librarianship. And I mentioned, and I had a young faculty member, a young teacher, who was very much involved in this aspect of librarianship. At the time, she was a reference librarian at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, and then moved to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. And I mention her because later on I will refer to her again. She will come back on the scene. At that time, 1999, I didn't know this one, my first exposure to library science, and we did all these exercises in the reference interview for the purpose of the course. But what I didn't know is that they had started, especially in academic libraries, they started around mid-90s, 1995, they started to notice a decline in reference question and reference transactions. So to limit ourselves to academic libraries, academic and research libraries, they used to have a reference desk staffed by reference librarians who typically were subject librarians who could provide information on their own subject and also on the resources in general of the university. And slowly, and I remember very well my colleagues who were staffing that desk in Sterling Memorial Library, that is the main library at Yale University. I worked there for 8 years before moving to Divinity. And they started noticing across the country a decline, or more precisely, and also embarrassingly, the nature of the question changed from being subject specific to being very logistical. Like, typically, where is the bathroom? That was the most frequent question, or directional. No, how do I get here? How do I get there? So librarians start wondering what was happening. And one of the ways that they tried to counteract this phenomenon at Yale, starting at the Yale Medical School, was to design a program. Basically, is the situation of, no, if the mountain doesn't go to Mohammed, Mohammed goes to the mountain. So the mountain being the students and the users of the library, and Mohammed being the body of librarians. So since the mountain was not coming, or was coming for very trivial purposes to the librarians, so the librarians decided to create, acting strategically, to create a program of outreach to the students and the library users in general. And that happened in the fall of 1996. As you can see here, the medical library started, and they had a very small, about 100 medical students is very small contingent, and I think they had 6 or 7 librarians involved in the program. And I'm not going to read what you can read it, and the PowerPoint can be circulated to whoever is interested in, because there may be links that you may want to explore later on. So in almost 10 years later, the same program was adopted and expanded by the Yale College, by the main library serving the Yale College. Yale College is basically the 4-year undergraduate program. This is the core of Yale University. And it's about, now we have about 1,400 students a year. They recently added 2 residential colleges built. They used to have 12, now they have 14. I think that increased the number of incoming students to probably 1,600 to 1,800. So 2 reference librarians in the main library designed this program, adapting it to undergraduate students. They were a little bit concerned, mostly about the quantity, from 100 to 1,500, 1,300, whatever it was at the time, was a big difference. And even if the main library had more subject specialists or more librarians in general, it was still a challenge. Also because undergraduates are different from graduate students, from medical students, so the range of topics that they may cover during those 4 years is much wider than medical. It may include also medical humanities. It may include other things. Nowadays, undergraduates do research and write papers on the most incredible subjects, including cross interaction between biomedical topics and demographics and literature. So it's very wide range of subjects. But they got support from the dean of the college, and the program was launched. I don't remember. I'm pretty much sure that I was part of the first contingent. My memory is kind of blurred at that point, but I've been involved in the program ever since the beginning, so it's probably over 10 years. And what happened is that they enrolled a number of subject librarians, and I was not a subject librarian, I was just one of the other librarians. And they divide, every time that, every year, the body of incoming student is divided among the number of librarians that are available. And incoming students are assigned a personal librarian for their first 2 years. Why only the first 2 years, freshman and sophomore? Because the Yale system, undergraduate system, requires them to declare a major by the end of the second year. At that point, so the personal librarian acts as a generalist. At that point, when they declare a major, English literature, computer science, whatever, they are assigned or virtually assigned to a subject specialist who covers that area. So it becomes is a growth in specialization. So their support librarian is not the personal librarian anymore, who is a generalist, but is a specialist, whether they take advantage of it or not. These are the reasons why, in addition to the decrease in reference traffic, this is important to mention, is the increase in information resources and tools. Multiplication, but also complication in interface. I mean, you deal with different, 5 different, let's say, content aggregators, let's call them like EBSCO, these large content aggregators, or ebook producer. They all have different interfaces, they all have different options, they have all different functions, they have all different limitations. So, and it quite often, it's difficult and frustrating for a student to understand and to accept. Say, why do I have to change? No, this allows me to download the entire book and this does not. And or I can download only a chapter. It's very complex, especially when it comes to ebooks. It's extremely frustrating because publishers or content aggregators want to give you access, but they don't want to give you access at the same time because of a number of reasons, mostly commercial reasons. So they need to navigate the complex diversity, and this applies to faculty too, even if they don't have a personal librarian. But I will mention something about that later. And this is just to give you a very quick sense of what this means. In our online catalog has a record for each format of an item. So if we have the microfilm, if we have the print, and if we have the electronic, this is 3 different records. So you click on the electronic record, and then there is a field that says full text. When you click to full text, you are taken out of the Yale domain and into the domain of the publisher. But before you get there, you quite often may, depending on the publication, you may get a screen, an intermediate screen that tells you how many content provider provide access to that publication, but each one with a different range. So some, in the case Nature, its own, the Nature website provide content from the very beginning to the present. Then it's available on other platform, but they start maybe from the 1960 until 1995. And each one has a slightly different, so you really need to have your own bibliographic citation to navigate to the year and to select the provider. This is much more than going into the stacks and looking for the publication in the traditional way. Navigating the online space is much more complicated and potentially frustrated than navigating the stacks. The worst case in the stacks is that you don't find the book, stolen or is borrowed or something. So there's another screen that shows, based on Yale, the catalog, the online catalog, all the options or the questions and the situation that you may find yourself into, just to add to the complexity of the online landscape. So this is the the personal librarian at the university level is 1 has its own website, its own web page, and that's why I put the link. If you have the PowerPoint, you can click on it. We are not going to do that right now. This is our own. So what happened is that the year immediately after the Yale College adopted the program, the Divinity Library, where I'm currently this was before I started working there. I started in 2012. So 2008, they adopted the same program for a much smaller contingent of students, but graduate students with a more specialized set of topics and subjects. So typically, Old Testament, New Testament, Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, Old Testament Greek, and practical theology, and so and so. So we have about 400. The library staff is much smaller. We have 5 or 6 librarians, and all of them, including the director, participate in the program. About 400 students every year, and 5 or 6 personal librarians. And in this case, however, students retain their personal librarian for the entire program, which is they complete their master in about 2 or 3 years. There is no distinction in this case. This is the library, the Divinity Library website, which lists with the photographs the 5 or 6 of us. And how do we manage this outreach? Typically, we replicate the system that has been devised for the Yale College. At the beginning of every year, late August, beginning of September, when incoming students arrive, and there is a whole 2 or 3 days of orientation provided by the school. And the library pitches thing, but what we do in terms of personal librarian, we send one letter to each of the incoming students. I usually get in a spreadsheet. I coordinate the database. I receive in early August. I asked the registrar for a list of all the incoming students, and I massage a spreadsheet. So all we need is first name, last name, net ID, email address. We assign my colleague, who is the assistant director, is in charge of reference and instructions. She assigns based on their major. They already, when they register, they already choose a path. Now, if they want to do one specialization or the other. So based on their declared specialization, she assigns one or the other. I don't have any subject specialization in the religious field or theology field, but that, as it turned out, is not that important, and as I will mention later. So we assign each one of our 6 to each name, and then I show my colleagues how to filter the spreadsheet, so they get only their own group of students, and they send this message. It's a standard message, you just add your own personal information, welcoming and explaining what you can, what a personal librarian can and cannot do. Basically, we can provide assistance and help on all library resources in the widest sense of the term, physical, electronic services. What we cannot do is to write your own papers. Although I find myself editing papers recently, but that's a different story. Typically, we are hit with questions triggered by specific assignments. So there are certain assignments that trigger immediately questions about resources for a certain paper. So we are prepared. In my case, and we are very flexible in exchanging students, because if somebody comes to me with a very serious question about finding resources on a specific theological issue, I'm completely at a loss. So I typically forward the email to my colleague. As it turned out, there are more than 50% of the interactions don't have to do with subject-specific questions or issues. They have to do with issues that I can address. Typically, well, I cannot access this database, typically related to online or IT technology. My VPN doesn't work or things like that. This is questions that I receive constantly. So there is, and this reflects what I was saying before about the complexity of the online landscape. So there is a decrease of subject-specific question, because I think students can find a lot of stuff by themselves online, whether they use Google or Wikipedia, I don't want to know. But at the same time, they find themselves running into many more issues that are navigational issues about the richness and the complexity of the resources that are available online. We try to send regular emails, especially if there are specific events or if there are new resources and tools that are available. So we want to make them aware of them. I personally write to all students, regardless of whether they are my group or not, when I have something that relates to IT resources. For example, for a number of years, Adobe Acrobat was available for free to students. Then for some negotiation with Adobe, it remained free for staff and faculty, but students had to pay. Then suddenly, last summer, they made it available, the whole Creative Suite, again freely for students. So I realized a lot of students come to me, I look at their web, they come with their laptop, so I see what they have, and I notice that if they have a Mac, they open their PDF with the native, which is preview. If they have a laptop with Windows 10, then the PDFs are open with Edge. And I say, but you know that you can actually have Adobe Acrobat for free. And since I noticed that many of them didn't, or maybe they had it, they were not even aware, so I send this across the board messages. No, this is a new resource. Make sure that that you can take advantage of. And at the same time, I offer help in downloading and installing the resource, which sometimes may be complicated. So we try to, for statistical purposes, now everybody collects data for statistical purposes. It's very important to show how much you do and how you do it. So we record interactions, and they happen by email. There are in-person consultations. Quite often you would say, oh no, they all write to you, and no. If they are saying, I'm writing a paper on this and that, I need to find resources, I say, no, let's schedule a time and a day when you can come. And half an hour to an hour is very common. I spend typically half an hour to an hour with the student in my office, going over their what they're trying to write about and showing them the different databases. Even if I don't have a subject, if I don't understand the subject, but I can show them where and how they can find resources. So in-person consultation is very common, at least in our case at the Divinity Library. And also every year I assign, I am active on both sides, undergrads and Divinity Library graduate students. So I have like probably 100, divide 400 by 5 or 6, 80 or 90 graduate students. A lot of them I know personally because we see each other all the time in the school, so there is a more close relationship. And then I have every year I'm assigned about 60 or so undergraduates. And at the beginning of the program, 2008, you never hear from them. So it was not a problem. No, give me 500. No, give me 50 more. It doesn't matter. They're not going to contact me. Then over the past 10 years, because of a change in the nature of these young men and women, These are students that are much more dependent on their parents. These are the children of parents who, when they come for orientation, they tend not to leave. They're very traumatic for them to leave their children, and there is a very strong relationship between parents and children. That the children, no, when I was a kid, I was trying to get out of my parents and forget about them. No, they are really part of their universe. So once the parents leave, they some kind misses them. So they tend to find themselves much more in need of a kind of an older figure or some. And I noticed a gradual increase in a request of support. Typically, they write in the first paper. Now they are 17 years old. They're writing. They choose these topics that are astronomically complex. And they don't know how much stuff we have, so they try to do some research, and they get 10,000 hits, and then they're lost. So I usually go downtown, where the Divinity School is about 20 minutes away from the main campus. I go downtown, and I sit down with them, and we spend typically an hour. So this has increased. As I say, there are questions triggered by specific assignments. This is true for both undergraduates and graduates, their first paper. Or in the case of the Divinity Library, I have to say we have a wide range. So undergraduates are 17, 18, and then they move on. We have a wider range. We have people who just got their bachelor, so they go into the master program, so they are 22, 25. And then we have returning students. They can be as old as 75 or so. Accomplished professionals, lawyers, corporate executives who suddenly decided they want to take a divinity degree. But when they went to school and they got their PhD, there was no internet. So they come back to school and they find themselves that they have to navigate this, and they get lost. Even the computer, sometimes they have a laptop, but this has an application or an operating system that is too advanced for them. So they come and ask. And I work a lot with those returning students more than the younger students. And I see women are more courageous in asking for help. Men, no, they feel that they can do it by themselves, and then they get into trouble. But women are more mature in that, as in many other things. There are subject-specific and there are technology-related typical requests for support. We record transactions in an application which you are probably familiar with. Is LibInsight is part of a suite of different applications that include LibGuides, research guides, LibCal, which is used for, and the company is SpringShare. And we can, typically what information we put, the date, a very short description of the issue. Students need help with paper assignment. Then we indicate if it's a personal library, the mode, in-person, email, the duration. If it's more than 15 minutes, you have to put them. And we submit, and you can retrieve statistical data regarding your own transactions, which is very good if you have to do performance review for promotion. I have to say that I do it regularly. A lot of my colleagues don't do it, so there is a lot of pressure or encouragement to record your own transactions, because it's not only for your own benefit, it's for the benefit of the whole. No, in our case, the Divinity Library has to show as a whole that answered this number of questions. But if my colleagues or one of them or two of them forget, the statistical data are not realistic. And sometimes I have so many things and I get one after the other in the morning that I forget, but you can go back the day after and and then you can do a lot of things, generate a report for statistical purposes. Well, before I forget, I go back to my first course, reference librarianship. Like it was 2010, it was before I moved to the Divinity Library. I got an email from my old instructor, one of my first instructors in reference librarianship at the Dominican University in Chicago. And she was the head of reference services at Johns Hopkins. And she asked me about the personal librarian program because she was interested in implementing it at her own institution. So it was interesting. My old teacher comes back to me with I don't know if she ever did anything, but probably she did. Another thing that is important is how to assess your program. This is true for every program. Everything that you do now, statistical data and assessment. The medical library did it twice, I think, in 2010 and 2009. And they basically ask very simple questions, like 7 questions, about if they used, very basic, if they used the personal librarian, if they were happy with it. And they, between 2006 and 2009, they noticed an increase. I don't think we did anything like that at Divinity Library, or maybe we did, but we are certainly going to do it next year, because we just hired a new access services librarian. We are trying to really increase the assessment component of our work. We're going to assess everything, basically. And there are, I help faculty too with library-related and instructional-related issues, especially online. And quite often, they ask me about, we don't have a personal librarian. I actually was asked why there is not a personal librarian for faculty. And there is a senior faculty who just retired. I went a few times to his office to help him with technical thing. He was trying to upload an image. And then he patted me on the shoulder and said, "You are my personal librarian." So that was spontaneously, he enlisted me. So we are considering that. And we are considering that because we received comments or requests from at least 2 or 3 faculty members. We are considering that especially for visiting scholars. We have visiting scholars from all over the world. We have a large collection of on Christianity in Asia, missionary work in Asia, particularly China and Korea. So we have a lot of visiting scholars and researchers from China who spend any time from 1 week to 6 months. And of course, they are not familiar with our resources, our system. So we are thinking about assigning our international students. We have contingents of shorter term students from Germany, from other parts of the world. Faculty, and a very growing area, at least for us, is accessibility. Accessibility became one of the priorities of the university. They made it part of the diversity and inclusion. I deal with digital accessibility, and I spend a lot of time. So I've been increasingly contacted by students with dyslexia. And we were talking about reading first. They have really problems reading, and once I had this young woman who was in tears because she had 500 pages to read by the end of the week, and he says, I have problems reading. So they want MP3 files or PDFs that need to be processed in a way that a screen reader can read them to them. This is being added to our work, so we'll try to make it part of the personal librarian program, to incorporate it in that program to make it more effective to address these issues. There are different forms of support. The program is, or a similar version of the program has been implemented by other, and this is just the list. These are all hyperlinks, so if you can, and they're pretty much similar with some variations. I like the one Crazy Smart at the Duke University libraries, but you can explore them. And what I put it at the end, there are basic, there are books that have been written on the personal librarian as a form of outreach. There are articles. The second one is actually Suzanne Estelle Holmer is the assistant director, and very dear colleague of mine who implemented the program at the Divinity Library in 2009. So she is the engineer of the whole thing, and she coordinates them. And these are more. Thank you.